Hey guys, welcome to the wet sanding video. This is one of my favorite parts of painting a car. It kind of brings it all together, and you'll see how I can take my really not super amazing looking paint and make it look pretty good. We'll start with the concept. So when you spray the car, the top layer is definitely going to be a little bit rough, and that totally depends on your skill, the gun setup, the reducer, and the temperature. So really all you're doing when you're wet sanding and polishing a car is just flattening out that very top layer of paint with sandpaper, and then you bring it back to shiny with polish. So this is really a three-stage process. You start with 1500, then you go to 2000, then you go to 3000. This car is a single-stage commercial truck paint, so it's way harder to wet sand than most paint, and I noticed a big difference between sanding this and sanding my base clear on my other car. So we'll start with the actual sanding here, and that begins with 1500 grit sandpaper on a soft block. Now I fold the sandpaper in 3 here. You'll see I use a light mist of water and just sand in an X pattern. Just really watch the body lines. You don't want to be going too close to them. I usually stay around a quarter to a half inch away from them. So after your first bit of sanding, you'll use one of these little rubber squeegees to dry the paint. Now you'll notice all these dull spots here is the actual orange peel that I've sanded off, and you can see the little shiny dots in between. Those are areas I haven't got to. So your goal is to make things as dull as possible without going too far down to the primer, and that really requires you to kind of know how much paint you've got in the car and just experiment. Don't sand too much at the start, and remember that anything you don't get with the 1500 grit, you can usually get with the 2000 or 3000. You'll notice here that the single stage paint color shows up on the paper, and you really want to keep the sandpaper clean. You'll see here, these spot where it's all dotted on here, that's actually clogged up. So check out this rear window line here. I stayed about a half inch away from it, and we'll check on it again later, and I'll show you guys. You won't ever really be able to see this little bit of remaining orange peel here. Now another thing, I stay away from really tight areas like above this wheel well when I'm using the 1500 because I don't really want these long scratches. It's really difficult to sand those areas in an X pattern, so I'll start in those areas with 2000 grit. So after all the 1500 grit sanding is done, I spray the area with the spray detailer to keep it really clean. One little piece of dirt here can add scratches in your car that will show up later that you'll have to remove in the future. Once I'm satisfied with the 1500 grit stage, I move on to the 2000. If it's your first time trying this, you might want to just start at 2000 and see how it goes. You can see here that a uniform dull finish is being achieved, and you can also see kind of below here some spots that need a little more work. It becomes pretty obvious. White's a little bit hard color to see. It's way easier on something like orange or red. So once I'm done with the 2000 grit, I'll clean again and I'll move on to 3000 grit. You'll see this 3000 grit tries to act as kind of a foamy sandpaper. It's a little bit difficult to hold on to a block. I'm definitely a lot less cautious when using the 3000 versus the 2000 and 1500. I get a little closer to body lines and try to blend things in more. You'll see here that after I'm done with the 3000, the panel is actually already a little bit shiny. Now take a look here. Can you see that line that I didn't touch there? It all blends in fairly well together. That's why I'm always more cautious with body lines, because if you burn through in one spot, then you have to repaint the panel. So it's better to just go slow and stay away from them. And you know what? If you're happy with it, then don't bother going back to it. So I'm using the 3-stage 3M Perfect-It system here for polish on the car. Now you'll see the white is the first stage. It's kind of a compound. The black is the second stage, and it's a fine polish. And then the blue is the third stage, and it's an ultra-fine polish. They're designed so that each stage will remove the scratches of the previous one, and these bottles of polish last forever. Like you could do 3 cars with 1 bottle. Alright, so now we'll move on to the polishing stage. Now, the most important part here is that when you're applying pressure to the polishing pad, you want to ensure that the edge of the polisher is spinning off of the body line and not digging into it, if that makes any sense. Tried to give you a little visual here to see what's going on. So I start with a couple dots of polish and just evenly spread it onto the area real quickly. And then I slowly start working the polish in. Just note here the direction of the polish or edge spinning off of the body line. And I'm changing the edge that I have pressure on as I go. So check out this shine after only one coat of polish, how good it looks. So I keep these little pads around and actually label them for fine and coarse polish. They're a little too soft for the different compounds I have, but they work really well for getting in these tight areas of the car, and the risk of burning is a lot lower with them. So with the first stage done, you can see that the shine is really coming through there. We then repeat the process, move on to the second and third stages. Check out how bad this rear bumper was before and after I wet sanded and polished it. That gives you a good idea that even if you really mess something up, it can come out amazing. So here's the finished product. I'm super happy with this car. For the $1,500 I have into painting it, especially in my backyard, I really couldn't ask for any better. If you make yourself a little better booth, spend a little more time, I'm sure you can get just as good or better result. Thanks for checking out this video. I've got the interesting stuff, all the mechanical work coming up soon, so hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Thanks a lot.